When I learned how to do proper dentistry, which is again something that we weren't taught, I was seeing profound effects from just doing a good dental on a horse. I think that they're just hungry for knowledge, they're hungry for a new way of thinking.
I'd like to welcome to Horse Chats our guest today, who is Dr. Sabine Ware. So, as well as being another equitana educator, Dr. Sabine Ware is an equine rehabilitation vet. She's the owner of Equine HSD, which is Health, Spine and Dentistry, and she's judging the Show Pony Business Awards. But before we do that, I'd just like to remind you that for a word for our sponsor. So if you'd like to work in the horse industry but not sure where to start, then have a chat to the friendly team at internationalhorsecollege.com. With the wide variety of horse courses from complete beginner to qualified professional with students on over 20 countries, they'll be able to consider your individual requirements and guide you in the right direction, which could include RPL, which is recognition of prior learning. Simply go to internationalhorsecollege.com to start the conversation. Registered Training Organisation 31352. Now, Sabine, as well as being a recognised rehabilitation vet, Sabine is the owner and main veterinarian at Equine HSD, and I'll remind you that it's health, spine and dentistry. So she does that rehabilitation in Seymour in Victoria, and she offers pain management, holistic care, rehabilitation such as water treadmill, and I was a bit stuck on this one. It's equine Pilates, which has been shortened to Equilates. Welcome, Sabine.
Thanks, Glenys. Good pronunciation of it. We got there eventually. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me.
Sabine, I forgot to warn you before we chatted before the show. I normally ask guests about an inspirational saying, something they say to themselves all the time to inspire themselves, something that they really like and they live by, or something they tell their students or their clients, or something else again and again. Have you got something like that, that you say again and again, something that you can talk to us? Sometimes that often reflects, what you're going to talk about, and also your, just your philosophy as well.
Look, it's probably not something that I would outwardly say on a daily basis. It's probably something that I remind myself of a daily basis, and I wouldn't say it's anything profound or long or anything like that, but the backstory is that a very, very close friend of mine who was a horse rider, competitor, a few years ago, he passed away, and his biggest thing in life was he used to always say, life is awesome. And so I actually have that tattooed on my wrist, and so I often just sometimes look down and remind myself that, you know what, you can be having the worst day, the most troublesome day, you can be going through hard times. You just got to remind yourself, life's actually good. Life's awesome. So, like I said, it's nothing profound, nothing overly intelligent, but for whatever reason, it's helped me a lot to kind of just, look back and go, you know what, what we're doing and what we get to do, especially for me, what I get to do every day, life's awesome.
I think that tells a lot about you, just gives you the optimism and just the way that you look at life. So I think it is pretty profound, actually. Yeah.
I'm glad you think that.
Now, this whole holistic, I'm really interested in the equine Pilates, actually, but the holistic veterinary, like you sort of think if someone's a vet, isn't that holistic veterinary anyway? Just tell us a bit more about how you differ, or how you probably were a vet and then you went into this whole holistic pain medication. How you came by that?
So, like, I guess, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've come across, and like a lot of people, we all set out to have life plans, and then the universe has other plans to what you thought that, you were going to do. And that's pretty much what happened with me. So I have ridden horses my whole life, competed horses my whole life, was born horse obsessed, as my parents would say. I don't come from a horsey family, and always wanted to be a vet. That was my goal. Went through vet school, aced all my equine stuff, and swore black and blue, I will never be a horse vet. It's not my thing. I don't want to ruin my hobby. I ride horses, I compete them. That's my hobby. I wanted to be a cattle vet. That was my thing. I wanted to go work on the farm, be a cattle vet. And at the end of the day, the universe decided that it had other plans, and slowly, I was seeing horses and I was seeing more horses. And then before I knew it, that was pretty much what I did on the daily. What I discovered was that vet school was great, but I was going out and seeing these horses and kind of feeling like something was missing, or not something was missing, a lot was missing. Like my training really hadn't set me up for the common problems that people were facing with their horses. And keep in mind, I graduated, well, I don't know, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So the problems we were facing, however, back then are very, very, very different to the problems people face now, or what we're kind of dealing with now. And so that kind of started my journey in terms of like, oh, okay, I think I need to know more. Like, I think I need to learn more, know more. And so I went about this in multiple different ways. So I did some extra training. I worked in different clinics. I moved to England and worked in a sole horse practice in England. And that in itself, it's a whole different story, whole different experience. But basically immersed myself in everything horse. And again, thought I had plans of how I'm going to learn more. And I thought, I'm going to have to go into a hospital and I'm going to have to get an internship and I'm going to have to be a specialist and I'm going to have to be all these things. And that's not what I ended up doing at all. I just ended up branching out, and I ended up discovering that, when I learned how to do proper dentistry, which is again something that we weren't taught, I was seeing profound effects from just doing a good dental on a horse. I then felt really lost treating common tendon problems, common joint problems, back problems. Again, I wasn't equipped, I wasn't set up, didn't feel like I had nearly enough information. So I went down more the route, and I went and studied in America at the University of Tennessee and did their rehabilitation course there. And that was probably the biggest turning point for me, because I did that course and pretty much came out of it and was like, I don't know how I ever treated a horse before knowing all of this information. Like, it just blew my mind. The things that they're doing over in America, like Australia, we don't even scratch the surface with it. And so to then go there and be immersed in all that extra information and the way they looked at things, it was just amazing. And so then it just evolved from there. Just more and more horses I started seeing. I started applying different things. I started trying different things. And then basically it's kind of led me to where I am now, which is kind of this holistic approach, which is plain and simply just like you have to take the whole horse into account. So that kind of leads into, like, I guess where I'm going with, my talk at Equitana is that, it's never one thing. It's never as simple as one thing and one fix and whatever. Like, the whole horse has to come into account. So, what their dentition is doing will affect the rest of their body. If your horse has problems in its body, that's going to show up in its mouth. How it's housed, what's being fed, how it's being ridden, what's it being ridden in, what surface is being ridden on. Like, all of those things at the end of the day impact your horse. And that's all holistic care is just literally taking into account the whole horse, the whole scenario of the horse's job. And then that goes into multiple facets of different things from there. But that's kind of how I ended up at that road, which is basically I just didn't feel like I was doing enough or knew enough and wanted to learn more. And I still feel like that on the daily. And I've been doing this for, I don't know how many years now, a lot of years. And I still feel like we're nowhere near knowing enough.
So at Equitana, you're going to be speaking about the signs of pain in the ridden horse. So I'd like to know, a bit of an overview, but just so that we know. So you talk about the whole horse approach, but it's not just what are the signs of pain, but how are the horses showing? Why do they show that way? Tell us a bit more than just the signs.
So putting it nicely is that I have no problem being a little bit controversial. That's kind of what I'm good at. And so my talk is obviously trying to recognize the signs of pain in your horse through common signs that people know. They buck, they rear, they bite, they jack up, all those kinds of things. We touch on, what are all the common things. We touch on other common signs that you might be looking for as well. So things that you might not notice, that you might need to do more specific tests for, footfalls, how they carry themselves, what they're like under saddle versus what they're like at a stand, what's their posture, like a lot of those kinds of things. But I guess from my point of view, what I'm also trying to do is bridge the gap between horse owners and equestrians and vets and their knowledge, and kind of trying to bridge that gap in kind of a logical fashion, because there is nothing easy nor straightforward about treating pain in a horse. And so it's more just, I guess, trying to bring a different perspective to pain for your horses, a different way of looking at it. Then we've got to look at what are we going to do about it, how are we going to manage it. And to be honest, the biggest thing that I'm trying to drum home is I'm trying to take away the fear element of pain with horse owners. So my passion and my passion project is to try and steer away from I guess, this fear society that we've created around pain in horses. And there's a lot of we were taught in vet school that when you hear hoofbeats, think of horses, not zebras. And so what it's trying to say is when you hear hoofbeats, first you've got to think of the common things, then you can go to the obscure things. So if you've ruled out the common thing, it's not a horse coming towards you, you can then say it's a zebra coming towards you. And I guess I'm trying to change the perspective on that as well, is that because I feel like these days horse owners are just overwhelmed with the information that's out there. They're overwhelmed with all the conditions that are being thrown at them. There's so much information. And then a lot of that information is being delivered in a very fearful manner, I think is the nice way of putting it. So, we're very good now at kind of, being like, here's all the things that could be wrong with your horse. And if your horse is showing all these signs, then there's something wrong with it, rather than actually taking the time to be like, hey, if you're having a problem, that's okay. We all have problems. No one is problem free. Let's work together to figure out what it is. How can we fix it? And if we can't figure out what it is, because that also happens a lot, we can still fix it or we can still work through it. So not sure if that makes any sense, but it's more like I said, we're just going to look at things from a different perspective, essentially.
Great. I think it sort of shows the type of people that you expect at Equitana. Tell us a bit about your clients, how far they range from, and are they mainly just horse, I suppose, amateur horse owners? Are they competitive riders?
I have a huge range of clients that I've got now. So I guess I'm very open to any horse that comes. I guess the biggest thing that I've changed now is that I used to be what they call ambulatory. So I used to travel around and go to people's places and do all the work there for lots of different reasons. I made the big decision to actually go, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And I set up at home. And so I work from home now. So first off, any horse that I see are horses that at least can, are handled, can be travelled. They've kind of come to me. So they're on a float. So if to me, the way I look at it is that any client that has contacted me, made a booking and gone to the effort of putting their horse on the float, I'm here to help you. That's the way I see it, kind of thing. You've made that commitment. Let's go. Let's do this. And then from that point, I have pretty much anyone. So I have unbroken horses. I love horse riders that are new to the sport, new to everything. I think that they are they're just hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for a new way of thinking. And I also find that, like I said, I love to streamline things for people. So, I try to make them comfortable enough so they can come to me. And if they're just like, oh my God, I am so confused, and I read this on Facebook and so-and-so said this to me. And I love to actually spend the time and be like, cool, let's nut this out and let's kind of put it together for you so that you can mentally calm yourself down a little bit. So I range anything from that through to your adult riders, your pony clubbers, your low-level eventers, your high-level eventers, your high-level cow horse, cutters, anything kind of thing, brumbies, whatever you've got. So in terms of the type of horses that I see them all. I want to help them all. To be honest, more so, I'm looking for clients with a particular mindset. That's more what I'm looking for. So, I want clients that think the same as me, that are open to having open and transparent and honest conversations, and we're very honest about the process and, very realistic about what we're doing. They're the clients that I want, and they're the clients that I've generally got. So a lot of repeat clients, that kind of thing, rather than someone that comes for one appointment and you never see them again kind of thing.
Yep. So I'm just wondering as well, you're judging the Show Pony Business Awards. Tell us a bit about that. What the criteria, what you're judging, who's doing that?
So basically, there's myself and 2 other judges, and we've been given a whole lot of submissions by businesses. They've put in products that they've created, and they've basically submitted that to Show Pony. And what we've done is we've just worked our way through each product and judged it on different things. So we're judging them based on, I guess, their product, what it is, how applicable it is to the market, things like that. We're judging them on their marketing, their branding, their sustainability of the product, and things like that. So there's a whole big thing of criteria that we're judging it on. And so again, for me, when I've looked at these products, I've looked at them from a point of view of like applicability to the everyday horse rider. That's, like I said, a big thing for me, whereas I'm sure the other judges might be looking for something a bit different. But yeah, it's been obviously I can't tell you what any of the entries are, but there's been a good range of entries and some really cool ideas come through.
So these are from businesses, are they? Like businesses associated with the horse industry, okay? So is it just ponies or is it other businesses as well?
No, it's everything. There's apps on there, there's clothing on there, there's things directed at racehorses, there's, a whole range of different things that have come in. So
Do you know how many applications there would have been?
oh God. 4, 8.
You started judging already?
Yep. So we've done all our preliminary judging.
Yep.
Anyway. So and there's finalists, and then I think basically we're judging those in person at Equitana.
Yep.
So but no, it's been good.
Is that on annually or like on each Equitana, or is this the first time?
I think this is the first time that they're doing it. So it's the first time I'm involved.
Yep.
So it's nice to be involved from like I said, a different perspective as well, not just kind of the veterinary thing.
And what day is the final?
Thursday. So whatever, Thursday the 14th, I think, yeah.
Yep. Is there anything else that I could have asked you but didn't, or anything else you'd like that people going to Equitana to know?
Look, like I said, I guess the type of people that I'm hoping will come when I'm chatting on Friday are, like I said, those types of people that are wanting to look at things from a different perspective. So, like I said to you, it's not a veterinary lecture. I'm not there to tell anyone about, kissing spine and ECVM and all these other things. There's plenty of information out there. I'm looking more for people that, like I said, I want to look at things from a different perspective. I want to show a much more kind of real world application of what does it mean for you and your horse. It's not the doom and gloom that you think it is, or like, how would you streamline the process? How would you manage the process? Just to give people a little bit of clarity about what goes on, because the moment you start having problems with your horse, it's super overwhelming for people. And I think that's what, as a practitioner, we forget a lot of the time. It's all well and good for someone to bring their horse, let's say they bring their horse to me. I can poke holes in your horse quite easily. It's every horse has a problem. And, for me or any other practitioner to stand there and say, oh, yep, your horse's hoof angles are wrong. Yep, it's got weak stifles. It's got a terrible back lift. It's sore through its neck. Like for us to stand there and kind of poke holes in your horse and highlight all the flaws, we do that every day. And, it's kind of not the be all and end all And it's not the way we should be kind of continuing to go with the industry, because I can stand there and I can do that, and I can, identify all the problems and shortcomings in your horse, and you're going to drive away and cry yourself home, kind of thing. And that hasn't done the horse any good. That hasn't done the owner any good. We haven't made the horse feel better. We haven't given the owner any idea of how to manage it, or to remind the owner that this is everyone every day. You're not alone in this. It's not all doom and gloom. There's lots of things that can be done. Like I said, when you hear hoof beats, think horses, not zebras. So it's more kind of trying to bring people together to say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the things to recognise. This is kind of our thought process. This is what we're going to do. And this is kind of how we're going to manage it. So like I said, much more kind of a collaborative look at things, rather than, like I said, it's not a vet lecture. It's not an anatomy lecture of any kind. So if it's something you think might interest you, then, I'd love for people to come and have a listen. Like I said, I've got no problem being controversial or anything like that. And, I'm always up for a chat. So even if people come and they only catch a snippet, they're always welcome to come up and chat to me. And I'm very good at that. So you can, I could talk the legs off a donkey sometimes. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I've certainly enjoyed chatting to you today. But if people would like to contact you, what's the best way? Is it email, by text?
So I have a website that I get a lot of traffic through my website, which is equinehsd.com.au. There's a bit of information on there as well. There's online consults. I do a lot of those as well on there. Otherwise, you can find me on my Facebook page as well, and that's got all my other details as well on there. And like I said, gives you an insight.
Just reminding everyone that if they go to horsechats.com and search for Sabine, that would be absolutely fine. You'll be able to get a copy of this chat, and all those contact details will be at the bottom of the page. Thank you, Sabine, for coming on. Look forward to chatting with you again, and look forward to catching up with you at Equitana. Thank you.
You too. Thanks so much for having me, Glenys.